Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our discussion on Tritons tackling educational inequity, ensuring Latinx generations rise. We have a great program for you today featuring an esteemed panel of speakers. And now it is my honor to introduce Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Dr. Becky Pettit.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for part 3 of Tritons Tackling Racism. Today we'll learn from scholars and leaders about the social, political, and historical impacts of anti-Latino racism in the US and how individual, local, and collective activism has improved Latino generational mobility. The mission of my office, the Division of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, is to provide leadership, build capacity, and forge partnerships to create a diverse, equitable, and inclusive campus in which all students, faculty, and staff can thrive. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to share how my unit is collaborating with faculty, our campus colleagues, and our community partners in the pursuit of educational equity to ensure that Latino generations continue to rise. Our vision to become a Hispanic serving institution focuses with intention on the serving part of that designation. It focuses on culturally specific outreach, culturally specific recruitment, and culturally specific engagement. And we're taking an honest look at our institution. We're looking at our processes, our structures, our communications, many aspects of our institution, and we're asking ourselves, what do we need to do differently? What do we need to do better? And what more can we do to ensure that we are the school of choice for our Latinx community? We continue to work to earn and maintain trust through genuine relationship building, listening, and creating conditions for our Latinx students, faculty, and staff to flourish. You'll learn more about our efforts from the wonderful panel we've assembled today. So now I turn this over to my colleague, Dr. Diane Forbes-Berthoud, our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, who will introduce our panel today. Over to you, Diane.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Pettit, and good afternoon, everyone. You are assembled today for a fantastic panel on tackling educational inequity, ensuring Latinx generations rise. And you'll see there on the screen our esteemed panel of Dr. Eda Beda, Associate Dean of UC San Diego Extension, Luis Alvarez, Associate Professor of History and Associate Dean of Academic Personnel and Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Ms. Gloria Corral, President and CEO of PIQUE, Parent Institute for Quality Education, Dr. Francis Contreras, Professor of Education Studies, Associate Vice Chancellor for the Center for Faculty Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Mr. Frank Silva, Chief of Staff for our office, the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So it's my pleasure to introduce first Dr. Luis Alvarez, who is the Associate Professor of History and Associate Dean of Academic Personnel and Equity for Arts and Humanities. He is also a UC San Diego alum, Go Tritons, year 1994. Dr. Alvarez, welcome. We hear that you have a personal narrative that is intricately woven into San Diego's Chicanex Latinx community history. Please share with us some historical perspective in this relationship between UC San Diego and the Chicanex Latinx community.
Thanks for the introduction, Diane, and to all of you for joining us today. In addition to being a history professor and an associate dean, I'm also a UCSD alumnus and native San Diegan. My family on my dad's side has deep roots in San Diego, particularly southeast of the city in Lemon Grove and surrounding areas. It was here where my grandfather and grandmother were born of Mexican immigrant parents who crossed the border after traveling the trail north. It's also where my father was born, where I was born, and where my twin daughters were born. Like I said, the roots are deep. In the few minutes I have today, I'd like to share a story about my San Diego roots, hopefully as a way to make a point about why history matters in building a relationship between UC San Diego and the rest of Chicanex and Latinx San Diego. My grandparents, Roberto and Maria, came of age in Lemon Grove during the 1920s and 30s. It's now just a short drive on the 94 East freeway from downtown, but back when they were kids, it was a mostly rural and agricultural community made up of Mexican immigrants, their Mexican-American children, and white American residents. Other than the lemons that were picked by mostly Mexican workers, Lemon Grove may best be known for a court case that grew out of its small elementary school shared by Mexican and white students. Both my grandpa and my nana were students at the school, and here you see them with their classmates back in the 1930s. In January of 1931, on the first morning of school after the Christmas and New Year holidays, white students showed up to the Lemon Grove Grammar School and entered the building as normal. Under orders from the Lemon Grove School Board, the Mexican students were barred from entering, told they did not belong, and directed to a shoddily constructed two-room school building several blocks away that was to be their new school, segregated from the white students. The Mexican children returned home where their parents instructed them not to attend the new school, a new school which many referred to as a caballeriza, or a barn. What followed evolved into the very first successful school desegregation court case in the United States, the case of Roberto Alvarez versus the Lemon Grove School District in 1931. Because he was a good student, spoke English, and as his friends later joked, had a decent pair of shoes, my 12-year-old grandfather was chosen as the plaintiff in the case. The parents and families of the Mexican students, my great-great-grandparents among them, mobilized to fight the segregation of their children. They enlisted the legal counsel of the Mexican consulate, and they won. More than 23 years before the 1954 landmark Supreme Court case Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, outlawed racial segregation of children in public schools, this small Mexican community in Lemon Grove fought for and secured for their children the right to equal education. It is, I think, a remarkable chapter in the history of Chicanex and Latinx San Diego, and not just because they won. The Mexican community in Lemon Grove took a stand against fierce odds. They challenged the white power brokers in their community that ran the school board. They risked alienating employers and losing their jobs in the midst of the Great Depression. They even faced the prospect of deportation during nationwide repatriation campaigns that saw more than 600,000 Mexicans return to Mexico, including countless numbers of Mexican-American born children. And yet, they came together in the tradition of immigrant mutualistas, or mutual aid societies, to form the Lemon Grove Neighborhood Association and fight. My dad still has a banner, a flag from the original Lemon Grove Neighborhood Association hanging in his garage today. You can learn more about the Lemon Grove case in the 1986 PBS film, The Lemon Grove Incident, or the work of anthropologist Robert Alvarez Jr. But one fascinating note is worth mentioning. The California Supreme Court ruled in favor of my grandfather and the Mexican community of Lemon Grove, in part because, at least according to state law in 1931, Mexicans were not considered Black or Indigenous, but Caucasian. As such, they couldn't be segregated from other white students. So the decision went. This points to the complicated racial politics in Chicanex and Latinx history, but perhaps we can save that for another webinar in the future. Next slide, please. And yes, for those of you that picked up on it, my father is the anthropologist who first unearthed and published scholarly research about the Lemon Grove case. He is Robert Alvarez Jr., and that makes me a rare second-generation Chicanex PhD. The impact of the Lemon Grove case and the value of education in Chicanex San Diego lives on in many ways. Here you see a few shots from my UCSD graduation back in 1994. One of my grandfather in his signature cowboy hat with his brother, my great uncle Antonio. Another of us with the rest of my family, including me with skinny tie and all. And one of me and my younger sister, who went on to earn her own BA from UC Santa Cruz and an MFA from UC Riverside. Next slide, please. Of course, San Diego's history is chock full of Chicanex and Latinx stories before and since Lemon Grove that are equally important. We could point to the thousands of servicemen and women who fought for American democracy overseas, yet were not afforded first-class citizenship back home, or the struggle to establish Chicano Park, pictured here in Logan Heights under the towering columns of the Coronado Bridge in the early 70s, in the midst of the Chicano movement, or more recently to the massive mobilizations against the anti-immigrant Prompt 187 in the early 90s, or La Gran Marcha for immigrant rights in 2006. Even our own UCSD history highlights how Chicanex and Latinx students have been crucial in making the university more inclusive, often in concert with African American, Native, and other students. They made UCSD history during the Lumumba Zapata struggles in the late 60s and early 70s to establish the Third World College that would become Thurgood Marshall College, or as it was known when I was a student, Third College. The fight to establish the Cross-Cultural Center when I was a student in the early 90s, and more recently, the student organizing in the aftermath of the Compton Cookout in 2010 that helped lead to the establishment of the Raza Resource Centro and other campus reforms. The trajectory UCSD is on to becoming a Hispanic serving institution, which you'll hear more about from my fellow panelists, is important not only because it means more Chicanx and Latinx students on campus. It also means their families, their communities, and their histories will increasingly be part of the university, and UCSD will be part of them. Next slide, please. A few of us at UCSD are working toward these ends through something called the Race and Oral History in San Diego project. Its goal is to capture the kinds of histories I've just outlined. I started the project with my colleagues, Professor Yena Spiritu in Ethnic Studies and Professor Simeon Mann in History. It includes a class that we team teach in which students do three things. They learn about the history of race in San Diego. They work with community partner organizations across the city and conduct oral histories. Our students have worked with amazing partners like the Barrio Logan College Institute, Casa Familiar along the border in San Isidro, the United Women of East Africa in City Heights, and many more. They've produced dozens of oral histories with Chicanx, Latinx, and other immigrant and refugee communities in the city. And we've partnered with Geisel Library to digitize the oral histories, house them on a growing website, and make them available to researchers and communities alike. Here you see our first class back in 2018 when we visited Chicano Park. This is all to say that part of making UCSD a more integral part of Chicanx and Latinx San Diego, and vice versa, includes making the fields of Chicanx and Latinx studies a more central part of the university. The Race and Oral History Project is one small way some of us are doing this work. Our history matters. So do our connections to the longer past of San Diego, including the struggles like the ones my grandparents were part of in Lemon Grove back in 1931. Education mattered then, does now, and always will. This is what my grandfather said about the Lemon Grove case later in life. Quote, "One of the important things, looking back now that I'm older, is that here's a group of people that are fresh out of Mexico, a lot of them out of Baja California, and they had kids that were born here, that were American citizens. They were a stern, sturdy people with education that had schooling, and they had the guts in a strange country to get together and say, this is wrong. And they fought it and won. I think that's important," end quote. I'd like to think that we're all here today, at least in part because we share that same responsibility to do the same in our time and our moment. Thanks for indulging me and for tuning in.
Many thanks, Dr. Alvarez. It's always good to have a historian in our midst. We see artifacts, we see the park, we see people, and we're not fully aware of their backgrounds and their heritage. So we appreciate your letting us into your family heritage, which is also our community and our regional heritage and history of Latinx, Chicanx peoples. Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to introduce Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Diversity and Retention and Professor of Education Studies, Dr. Francis Contreras. Welcome, Dr. Contreras. Can you please set the context for us and help us to understand Latino educational equity? What are some of the concerns and the critical issues that shape Latino educational equity in the US, California, and San Diego? And what are some things that can be done to disrupt this educational inequity? Welcome, Dr. Contreras.
Thank you so much, Diane. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be with you this morning. I am going to be providing a backdrop of Latino educational equity and why it's always been a concern for Latinos. I am going to talk to you about why investing in Latinos is critical to the California and the country first. And this is part of my larger research and my research agenda. So to give you some data points, over 6.1 million Latino children live in poverty, and Latinos will be the largest segment of residents by 2044 in the nation. When we think about Latinx residents, they're already the majority in the state of California at 40% of the population. Yet they are the working poor in the state. And we see that most pronounced even now in this current moment of COVID, where Latinos are a lot of these service workers out during this pandemic. And then finally, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. So why does this matter? It matters because we make up a good proportion of the nation's economy. And we have a presence in the economic blueprint of our nation. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of more data just specifically on Latinos in California, Latinos are 40%, we know this, but they make up over 75% of the children under 5. When we think about the thumbprint and the demography and demographic shifts, this is an incredible number that we are seeing, that they make up 75% of those children. And they also make up a good proportion of children in California schools. Over 55% of the K-12 population are Latinx students. However, in the fall of 2020, actually, let me go back a little bit. Intertwined with low income, Latinos are 62% of those children that are in low income families. And so when we think about the challenges, especially, right now in this online virtual format, they are tremendous. I, being a parent of 2 young children, I know firsthand the challenges of educating young children, and it's really evident the disparities that we're seeing. What's also important to note is that with the changing in demography and the changes in demography, we are noting that all public systems today in California are HSI systems. What does that mean? It means that a critical mass of all public systems of education, K-12, the UCs, have over 25% of Chicano Latino students. So let me break it down. 6 out of 9 UCs are HSIs. We, UC San Diego, are very close. We are an emerging HSI. Us, along with UCLA and Berkeley, are emerging HSIs. 21 out of 23 CSUs are HSIs. And 94 out of 116 California community colleges are Hispanic serving institutions. So when we think about the backdrop, all public systems of education are HSI systems, numerically. Next slide, please. But in terms of the current moment, the Latino community is faced with both health, economic, and education challenges due to COVID. And we've seen that more pressing in recent months. Latinos are 60% of the cases and 40% of the deaths, according to the California Department of Public Health. This is unprecedented. No other community has been impacted by COVID the way our community has been impacted. Latino students and families are navigating COVID in this virtual setting, and it's been challenging. I know for a fact, being in the South Bay, I'm navigating 12 websites minimum per child, and I just can't imagine a first-generation family navigating multiple websites, multiple online platforms, multiple submission portals for every single child. It's really challenging. Connectivity has been delayed and challenging, as well as navigating these multiple platforms, as I noted. And with that, with the delays, we saw a delay up to 1 month to 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So that's it's 2 months of a delay in terms of being up and running for Latino children. And we've seen it most pronounced in rural regions in the state of California. Now, for college students, we've seen Latino students navigating the pandemic differently as well. I taught a class last spring 20, on Latinos in education. I had over 70 Latino students in the class. And what I quickly realized that they're more likely to navigate the pandemic once they went back home. They're helping out with family. They went back to work full time. They're helping with finances. They're assisting younger siblings with instruction and care. And they're struggling financially in the wake of either parent job loss or insecurity. So in this current moment, it's important to acknowledge that educational equity is a pressing concern, and it's something that we're going to be concerned with for a long term. Next slide, please. So I studied my class past spring. I had them journal. I had them really record this moment for themselves. I wanted them to think back on how they responded to adversity, because I think one key element to being a good leader and a good future leader, and as I saw them all as either, leaders among their peers and future leaders of our community, I wanted them to really reflect back on this moment critically for themselves, also in the context of Black Lives Matter and acknowledging the racial injustice that currently exists for African American and Latinx communities and communities of color. So in terms of the current moment, this is a quote. This is a quote from a third year male transfer student. "I've been having trouble with my coursework," who reached out to me during the class. "I've been struggling to stay focused on everything. I've been driving back and forth from San Diego to Los Angeles because I've been helping my family pack up. They've lost their jobs due to the pandemic and are moving to Texas with my grandparent. My family and I finished packing yesterday and they just departed. It's been a really tough time." And when I think about student experiences during COVID, this moment really calls us all to action, right? And so as faculty, a number of us can tell you that we've offered to provide resources for our students, do drop-offs of resources and supplies, have been helping our students with the loss of family being here in California, that they're moving to a whole entire other states. So the current moment, I just don't want to lose that we really have, it's a reflection of where we are as a community and the work that we need to do in terms of investing in our Latino students, and perhaps doing a reset in terms of how we approach educational equity.
So it appears that we are having some technical difficulties. Our apologies, lo siento. We will loop back with Dr. Contreras and hopefully our tech issues will be cleared up, but I am pleased now to welcome Dr. Ed Abeyta. Dr. Edward Abeyta is the Associate Dean for UC San Diego Extension, and we're pleased now to welcome him. Dr. Abeyta, welcome. Please tell us what is essential in our work of community engagement with the Latinx communities, and how can we refine our practice and our programming to inspire and engage our next generation of Latinx leaders? Welcome.
Well, thank you, Diane, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I think I'll begin with noting that we've come a long way at UC San Diego to be an inclusive campus, but we have much more work to do. But the very fact that we have this panel today in support of our campus leadership focused on Tritons tackling educational campus inequity and other inequities speaks well to our evolving campus culture and responsibility we have to our community. As a bit of an introduction, I grew up in New Mexico, where I'm a proud product of a first-generation parents who instilled in me that education was the key to my life and career aspirations. And it's that mindset that has inspired my career in education and my work at UC San Diego, which started 25 years ago as a high school outreach counselor with the Early Academic Outreach Program, otherwise known as EAOP. So as we look at community engagement through extension, there's so many, first of all, great programs and efforts that are going on in our community. I'm speaking today from the work we do through education, through extension, which has been grounded in community engagement and lifelong learning, annually serving about 80,000 students around the world in our adult education, international, 50 plus, and through our UCTV programming. In 2012, UC San Diego created the pre-college program division, which later merged with our teacher and professional development, led by Assistant Dean Morgan Pell, and our 50 plus programs. And we renamed our area called Education Community Outreach, or our ecosystem, or ECO as we call it. And one of the key areas that we were guided by is FIALU. Now this is our motto for UC, and it's let there be light. And our work illuminates our connection to the core values of the Latinx Chicanex initiative. For us, translated this Latin, let there be light, in our work, we translate this phrase to let your light shine, because we believe FIALU is about individual talents, the uniqueness, and all of the brightness that all of us bring to the world. And we know that our work in connecting to community, the first premise that we look at is authentic community connections. We know that transactional presentations are not going to move the needle. It's about truly engaged and sustaining our work together is what it's all about. And the picture that you actually, some of the pictures that you see on the slide with some of the students that we see and some of the presentations, there's Barrio Lugo College Institute, our work in Imperial Valley, National City, and also Reality Changers. Next slide. So in our practice, we focus on connecting with our community at each stage and life stage. That includes alums, families, and now pre-college. These young girls on the slides are an example of young Latinas who aspire to be the next Ellen Ochoa, who has been our guest at UC San Diego. And also others that connected to Sally Ride Science and the work that we do in inspiring not just Latinx, Chicanex, but a whole range of diversity efforts that connect to our community. Community connections, number one, informs our practice. It's our service mission. As we develop our programs, instead of trying to program and implement into the community, our first step is always to listen, and listen with a mindset of developing programs on the needs of our community, not the needs of ourselves. That means that we have to meet our partners where they are, and we have a mindset that we are guests of communities, and we have to respect that. Whether it's in Imperial Valley, National City with Mayor Solis, or Sweetwater Unified School District with Moises, another alum, or Cindy Martin at San Diego Unified School District. Their partnerships and our partnerships with the city library system where we do programs, our work with the Kumeyaay Nation, Vieja, Siquan, Verona, and others, and our key partners throughout our community. The real area that we focus on is that our work and relationships need to be sustainable and that we need to build trust. We want to create and sustain also a business model that ensures that our offerings are sustainable and not dependent on unreliable funding, partners that are like the state, federal government, and various grants that at times there's a robust amount of funding, but other times those funding cuts occur, and we do not want to break promises. That is why some of our efforts have been built on some of the infrastructure and practice extension does to have a sustained program that is not completely dependent on outside undependable funding. Next slide. So as we look at our community programming, we really understand that programs are built to understand where our communities need. Our work seeks to complement existing outreach programs at UCSD, and we really want to focus, it's not in place, it's in complement to. Our work that we continue to do is based on a lot of work that has been done with the Chancellor, who has made it a focus of the strategic plan to not just be that island on the hill, but be able to have community connections well beyond this region. You look at in the future of building on programs that complement our work with areas in Library Next that you see on the slide. This is a program in which we actually had an opportunity with our city library systems. Our city libraries are public goods, just like UC San Diego. And years ago, we had an opportunity to start looking at libraries who are embedded in our communities, and we had an opportunity to leverage their existing classrooms, their resources, and connection to community, and bring UC San Diego into our community libraries, where we offer at no cost programs for parents, programs for educators, and pre-college. Most notably recently, we've realized that it's a family affair. So when we offer our programs, we realize, especially with first generation and Latinx, Chicanex, building relationship to family is a holistic view that we take to heart. It has developed us, and again, continue to inform our practice. For those individuals coming to UC San Diego, we understand, especially with Latinx, Chicanex, that we need not to just prepare the young students to be entering into UC San Diego, but we also need to include their family and educators and community partners. It's a family affair, and the same thing with my family. We go in and we survive and we move through and we advance together. Again, our partnerships are key to all of our work. And some of the other areas we have developed is through UCTV. Some of this has been done in collection with many partners on campus, both in Spanish and English, to actually document through video and programs and very short episodes of practice that for parents and practitioners, policymakers, that can be downloaded through the education channel for UCTV. And also now looking at not just the classes that students are taking, but our program called Futures enables students to do what we've done for adults for years. And that is, in many cases, developing a workforce that has practical skills. So you can imagine for a moment, students in our high schools, not only graduating with a diploma, but actually a certificate from the University of California Extension at San Diego, and areas of emerging jobs like computer science, life sciences, business management, and engineering, the STEM areas. Our work is ever evolving, and we continue to sustain great partnerships. And I think as we go to our next panelist with Gloria, she'll be able to describe a little bit more of our work, and especially with her role at PK. I really appreciate the time to actually kind of share some of the work that we're doing at Extension and all the work and the support we've had from our campus leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abeyta, and congratulations on your leadership and the fine work of your team at Extension to raise up the next generation of Latinx leaders. It's my pleasure now to welcome, and Dr. Abeyta began this introduction, Ms. Gloria Corral, who is the president and CEO of the Parent Institute for Quality Education, PIQUE, and a UCSD alum as well. Ms. Corral, welcome and thank you for joining us. We would like to hear from you how PIQUE influences Latinx students and families. And could you share with us some strategies for community partnerships that would reduce inequities? And how would we continue to develop partnerships with organizations such as PIQUE that influence the trajectory of our Latinx students? What's your experience been? We'd love to learn.
Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be part of this important and timely conversation, especially in the context of, as Dr. Contreras was pointing out, the context of this national and international pandemic that has really elevated, I think, and laid bare not just the health inequities, but importantly, the structural and systemic inequities that exist. And so I think this is not just a timely and important conversation, but it's the conversation that will enable us to move forward in a constructive and bold way. So I wanted to start, however, by giving you a little bit of background in terms of the work that PIQUE does, who we are as an organization, and the incredible opportunities that I see to really engage in meaningful systems change through collaboration with UCSD, and importantly, and perhaps more broadly, in our education system. So PIQUE is a parent engagement and empowerment organization. We really are a social justice and educational equity grounded organization. We came out of the civil rights movement. You heard earlier today about the desegregation case in Lemon Grove. Certainly that's something that as a San Diego organization, we have learned more about, but importantly, it really speaks to the work that San Diego has done historically, really in making educational opportunities available to communities that typically don't have those opportunities made available to them. We began in Sherman Elementary in Southeast San Diego 34 years ago by convening families who had a dream and had aspirations for their children, and engage them in a dialogue about their concerns, their dreams, their hopes, and how those dreams and hopes could be in partnerships with schools, in partnerships with teachers and principals and district leadership, how they could develop the skills, the abilities to really make those dreams a reality. This process of community dialogue is really the basis of the work that PIQUE does in our community. And importantly, I think with that sense of social justice and educational equity at the forefront in everything that we do. If you can go to the next slide, we really do believe that it's through this empowerment of parents that we systematically change the ability of children and families to thrive in their communities. We're a national organization. We partner with districts in 13 states across the country, and we do direct service work in California. We serve approximately 18,000 families a year, and our families are predominantly low-income, non-native English-speaking immigrant families, many of whom have limited educational experiences from their own country, or even in this country where the education system may have failed them. So while we focus specifically on first generation college going students. That means that they may be second or third generation Latino families that haven't been able to access higher education opportunities. And we partner with close to 400 schools across the state. And in the next slide, you'll see that one of the things that we did in this moment, as Dr. Contreras was mentioning, was that we felt it was precisely these families that would be the least able to access and navigate the current pandemic, primarily because of some structural inequities that exist. Those of us who have been doing education for a long time, as I have, know that the digital divide didn't happen when COVID hit. It had long been standing as an issue of inequity. However, in this context, we knew that the lack of digital literacy, the digital divide with respect to just basic internet access, and additionally, our need to ensure just health and well-being of families, that all of this was something that would be impacting the families that we serve most directly. And they would be the ones that would be least connected to any resources that might be available. And so what we've done is over the past 8 months, we have reached out, we have listened, we have heard, we have asked, how are you? How's your family? Really with the idea of building that bridge between where families are and what they need and the resources that are available. And we've done that, the old school way, human to human, people to people, making phone calls. We've talked to over 20,000 families across the state, really with the active and intentional desire to support them, meet them where they are, very much like Ed was mentioning, meeting them where they are and helping them access resources that they need in order to support themselves and their families in this moment. One of the things that we felt was really important to live that belief was to make the necessary phone calls. And as you can see, on average, we make 3 to 5 phone calls, and we spend about an hour collectively really supporting the development of the family's digital literacy so that they are able to navigate this new online world. In the next slide, one of the things that we wanted to share with you was sort of the embedding of this belief in the practice of everything that we do. And we continue to build these partnerships predicated on this model of building relationships, having them be asset-based, and really being reflective of the needs in the community, of the communities and the families that we serve. It has to be holistic, and I think Ed's notion of how you build partnerships is really why our partnership with UCSD specifically is so meaningful. It's because when there is goal alignment, mission alignment, and strategy alignment, we really know that that's how you create not just structural change, but lasting and fundamental change in communities. And so we look at making sure through our process of building partnerships that we honor that process by which we create community among and between families, and that they understand and that they are empowered not just to learn, but also to look at each other as what they are, the strongest and best advocates for themselves and their children. In the next slide, I captured some of the ways in which we as a nonprofit education and social justice organization, we look to develop partnerships really through this lens. It has to be a partnership that makes sense, that honors and respects the journey that our families are on to ensure that they are able to support their children's and their families' well-being. It is a holistic approach. We are a trusted messenger, which is in a lot of ways why we are specifically, I think, responsible to ensuring that those with whom we partner honor and respect the process, but importantly, the work that families do from that asset-based construct. We really believe that it's through trust and accountability that those relationships are meaningful. And so we couldn't be more excited to really continue to develop the work and the partnership that really extends and support both our mission as a community-based organization, but also the strategy and the effort led by Dr. Pettit and the rest of the team, really around making UCSD an HSI, but importantly, the opportunity of making it accessible to a larger community. And so the next slide really is to give you a sense of how it's through this developing of partnerships that we really believe we can make academic success available for families. And I know that because that was the journey that I was on. This education journey is a personal one. It reflects my family. It reflects my experience. I grew up, I'm from Tijuana. I was born there. My family's from Mexico, but I grew up in San Isidro, a border community here, primarily low income, Spanish-speaking immigrant families, where there was really no clear path to a higher education pathways. And my parents, very much like you heard here today, like so many others, came to this country wanting a better future for their children, but not knowing what that meant or how to best have access to that. They instilled in us, hard work and love of family and commitment and responsibility to others, but with no English skills and very limited educational experiences. My dad has a third grade education. My mom has a 6th grade education. They really didn't know how to navigate the education system in a different language in a new country. But it was really through their struggles and their beliefs that we, all 4 of us, I have 3 brothers, but all 4 of us were able to achieve an educational experience and actually graduate from UCSD, which is the picture you see is on the left. It's my youngest brother's graduation, because it really was a moment of, I think, collective appreciation and celebration, because one of the things that my dad had always told us, each of us, was that his inheritance to us, to his children, was what he would say, lo que les dejo en la mente y en el corazón, which is what I leave you in your head and in your heart. That is his inheritance to us. And so as the president and CEO of a community-based organization whose mission it is to make this story, my story, the story of so many others, it is extraordinarily exciting for us to partner with UCSD to really make those opportunities and those pathways wider. And so I look to you, those of you who are here and joining us today, to ask each of you to commit to making educational equity something that you contribute to, whether it's through your time, your talent, your treasure, to join us at PIQE or other organizations, UCSD and others, really to broaden the path towards educational equity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Corral. I love that, the gift of la mente y el corazón, that parents and la familia will instill in the next generation that education helps us to rise indeed. Thank you for that personal aspect, as well as your fine leadership with PIQE, the Parent Institute for Quality Education. We're so inspired. Thank you. We're pleased now to welcome our very own Frank Silva, who is the Chief of Staff for our office, which is the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Frank, welcome. Can you share with us more about how UC San Diego's Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative is helping us to attract, retain, and recruit students to ensure that Latinx generations rise? Frank.
Thank you, Diane, and many thanks to everyone who has tuned in for this webinar. We're very excited that you are here with us. As Diane mentioned, I'm here to share some new and exciting steps that UC San Diego has taken to help ensure educational equity for Latinx students, and in particular to cover the Latinx Chicanex Academic Excellence Initiative. The initiative is the product of joint work and input from students, staff, and faculty. It exists to help ensure that generations rise. The idea of generations rising comes from the students. When we started this work back in 2016, we spent a lot of time talking to students to find out more about what they needed, what their experiences have been like, and we also spoke to alumni. And one question we'd ask young Latinx scholars was, why the pursuit of higher education? And consistently what we heard was to help my family, to help my community, and to help myself. And the initiative is about helping students realize their dreams of being able to help their families, their community, and themselves. And what we learned was that in order to do that, we had to acknowledge that our Latinx students come to us with deep, rich cultural capital, strengths, talents, and abilities, and that we need to be responsive to them. We here at UC San Diego, we're not asking the student to change in order to thrive. We are asking our institution to change in order to ensure that students thrive. So the initiative is about the ongoing transformation and evolution of our institution. It's focused on making the institution responsive to the students. It's about engaging with their parents and family, integrating Latinx cultural values and a sense of Latinx community into UC San Diego. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to share with you is a video that covers the mission and core values of the initiative, which we launched in spring of 2019. And after the video, I'll cover some program highlights, accomplishments, and share what is in the pipeline.
Latinx. As a great public institution, I think it is a responsibility to reflect the state in our student population.
We are proud to be launching the Latinx Chicanex Academic Excellence Initiative, making UC San Diego a place where generations rise.
The mission of the initiative is to actively transform UC San Diego into a student-centered university for the success of current and future Latinx Chicanex students, families, and communities.
We will do this through 6 core values that advance equity, build community, and ensure student success. Community and culture. Comunidad y cultura. We value and celebrate the dynamic cultural, familial, and regional experiences of our Latinx Chicanex students.
It's really important that as a university, we validate not only their Latinx identities, but also their scholar identities.
We recognize the importance of family and community for our Latinx Chicanex students. Spaces like the Raza Resource Centro, one of 6 campus community centers, offers a welcoming place for all to engage, connect, and grow.
Spaces like the Raza Resource Centro, students are able to feel welcome, supported by the staff, and they're able to share their identities, their culture with their peers, and form a community where they can thrive and be retained at UC San Diego.
Equity. Equidad. We promote dialogue, respect, and inclusivity to advance equitable access to educational opportunities.
We are in the business of growing people. And what inspires me is that we are allowed to do this in a very novel way.
All students should have equal opportunity to achieve their educational dreams. More than 1/3 of our incoming class are the first in their family to attend college. As a community of belonging, we value and celebrate their journey, supporting them from the first day of class to commencement day.
Being a first-generation student, I wasn't able to see people before me succeeding within higher education. By introducing this initiative, it will help more Hispanic students succeed in education and then kind of show the future generations that it's possible to get to this level.
Student-centeredness, enfoque estudiantil. We embrace the whole student experience by affirming their intersectional identities and meeting their evolving aspirations, needs, and interests.
I care deeply about making sure that all of our students who step onto this campus are successful and that we help them move not only themselves forward, but also help move their families forward as well.
We celebrate the whole student, their culture, identity, family, and background. Our dynamic programs like Oasis Summer Bridge and Triton Freshman Scholars prepare students to enter the university with a clear direction.
There's definitely community, and without that, you tend to fall apart as a student. So something like the Undocumented Resource Center, it's a place where I feel a sense of belonging. It's something that I've come to depend on in terms of emotional needs and academic needs. It's just a great place to be.
Success, éxito. We support students in thoughtful ways that draw upon their existing strengths to define and achieve their success.
It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, like you have some experience that someone else doesn't have.
We inspire Latinx, Chicanex students to be bold and dream big. We help them recognize their amazing potential and provide the tools needed to prosper. Our students have access to a full suite of tools to ensure their success and help them develop as leaders.
We want students to come to UCSD, but we want them to thrive while they're here and graduate and go on to do brilliant things after they're finished with their degree at UCSD.
Flourish, florecer. We inspire one another to honor the past, transform the present, and define the future together. To truly flourish means to be well in every way, intellectually and emotionally. UC San Diego provides a foundation for our Latinx, Chicanex students to thrive in all areas of their life.
We're challenging ourselves as a collective to think about how we might set up our students for the future. It's because we know that our students don't come to college alone, that their families also come to college with them.
Accountability, responsabilidad. We take responsibility for evaluating and communicating progress in meeting our mission and core values, and we are committed to continuous improvement.
We're not just that institution in La Jolla on the Hill. We're actually a resource. We have a responsibility to give back.
So now imagine a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multilingual community learning from each other and challenging each other to think about what the world's going to look like.
This is such an exciting time. We are thrilled to launch this initiative, and we're just getting started.
Many of the programs that flashed at the end of the video are new. For example, the Raza Resource Central, Student Success Coaching, CASP, the Undocumented Student Center, the Teaching and Learning Commons, and LACE. These are just a few programs that are brand new and really part of UC San Diego's effort to transform itself. And also some have been cornerstones in the educational equity mission of UC San Diego, like Oasis, TRIO, EOP, the Chicanex Latinx Studies Program, and the School of Medicine's Hispanic Center of Excellence. So it's the development of new programs, expansion of existing programs, and the intentional collaborative partnerships between all of these programs. They're a direct result of UC San Diego's ongoing transformation to ensure educational equity for Latinx students. In addition to that, we've taken a few other steps to create a campus where Latinx students feel welcome and feel like they can thrive. So for example, we have the Raza Living and Learning Community, which is a space where students can live together, share community, and they're all committed to developing their understanding and greater appreciation of the Chicanex Latinx experience in the United States and the histories and cultures of Latin America. We have made UC San Diego the permanent home of Adelante Latino and Adelante Mujer. And we're proud to have these back. They used to be at UC San Diego, and it was through the work of an alum of UC San Diego who reached out to me and said, Frank, let's try to see if we can have UC San Diego host these two major college-going conferences, that we were able to bring these back. And we're very glad that they're here. Innovation grants, we've made funding available to faculty and staff to seed ideas across campus that focus on student success and improving sense of belonging. And translation. So we have been increasing access to Latinx parents and guardians and translating our websites and other information to improve access. Next slide, please. And as well as establishing new partnerships, we have been working with Pettit and some other organizations to really increase Latinx and Chicanex students' competitive eligibility to attend UC San Diego and higher education in general. And creating new programs in places like the Centro, for example, UC Insights, which started off as an idea of one of our student employees at the Centro. And it's really an opportunity to have prospective students have their admissions essays reviewed by our staff. This, what was once a little idea, is now growing into a major collaborative partnership between admissions, EOP, TRIO, and the Centro. And then one thing that we're also very excited about is our comprehensive Spanish language media campaign. Next slide, please. So here's an example of some of the websites we've translated. The admissions website is completely translated. So if you were to go to admissions.ucsd.edu, you would find a Spanish equivalent of that website. Next slide, please. Here are two examples of some of our Spanish media campaigns. And there's also on television, there are animations of these two campaigns that are being played on Univision television stations. Next slide. What I like to play for you is an example of one of our Spanish media radio ads.
Imagina a un estudiante que vive en medio de dos mundos, donde la cultura y la esperanza se unen, donde estudiantes de diferentes culturas son bienvenidos y pueden elegir muchas carreras para superarse, ayudar a su familia, su comunidad y tener un futuro mejor. Ahora imagínate que ese estudiante eres tú. Piensa lo que lograrías. Acércate y descubre la escuela pública número 1 de los Estados Unidos, UC San Diego. Visita ucsd.edu.
Next slide, please. And I'd also like to play this one because it highlights one of our faculty members.
Mi mamá me enseñó que si estudiaba mucho y respetaba a los demás, llegaría muy lejos. Soy mexicana y también mexicoamericana. Cuando me aceptaron en UC San Diego, me cambió la vida porque formé parte de una comunidad que me ayudó a superarme.
Y ahora ya tengo un doctorado en Ingeniería de Materiales. Soy Olivia Greve, la primera profesora latina de Ingeniería en UC San Diego. Acércate y descubre que en UC San Diego también hay un lugar para ti.
Visita ucsd.edu.
Next slide, please. So these radio ads, these posters that you can see on billboards, as well as news segments on the Univision News are all part of our outreach to our Latinx community in a language that is their language. And it's part of us being culturally responsive. If you go to that little hyperlink on the bottom, you can see 20+ different news segments that Univision has done with our students, with our faculty, and with our staff. Next slide. And just real quickly, I'd like to run through some things that are in the pipeline and share those with you. We will be having a new television ad coming out in the beginning of next year. And this ad is about 1.5 years in the making. Lots of focus groups with community members to develop the content and get it just right, because we want this ad to be something that really resonates with our community. Lots of partnerships where we are partnering with admissions to offer simultaneous translation of what they are doing in terms of virtual outreach. And then a virtual platform in partnership with admissions, EOP, TRIO, Extension, UCTV, and VCEDI to create a platform or virtual platform where young prospective scholars, their family members can go to learn more about college going. And also there's a series of talks from our Latinx faculty that will be part of this virtual platform where they talk about their pathway, share their story, and invite prospective scholars to come to UC San Diego. In the fall of next year, there will be a parent and family orientation, collaborative partnership. This will be in English and Spanish. We'll infuse Latinx culture into it. And then, you've met our colleague, Gloria Corral, who is the CEO of Pettit, and this is a partnership that is just forming really to engage our families and our communities as part of our pre-collegiate preparation and matriculation to really have families be part of that process. Next slide. And again, more outreach efforts. Really working to cultivate our Latinx alumni. So our alumni office is really working on that. At the OP level, there is an advisory committee where we have some representatives that serve on that. We're looking at really creating an HSI system, so all UC schools. Another thing that we're really excited about launching in maybe late winter quarter or early spring is our Padrino and Madrina giving circles for scholarships for our young Latinx scholars. And we will be revisiting our recommendations. So I mentioned earlier that this all started in 2016. What came out of that original group of faculty, staff, and students was some recommendations that were going to take us into being an emerging HSI. And now we are going to be working this year on developing a new set of recommendations that really focus on the serving aspect of being a Hispanic serving institution. So we'll be engaging lots of student involvement in that process. And I think that about concludes what I wanted to cover with you all. So thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Frank. And what a great way to showcase the amazing work and leadership of our office, the Vice Chancellor Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So many great initiatives and so many ways for us to become involved. We have Dr. Contreras, who has returned to our panel. Welcome back. We certainly would like to give our audience the opportunity to see your closing. So we have about 2 to 3 minutes before we move to question and answer. Dr. Contreras, if you would bring your presentation to a close. We especially are interested in your family connections and Latinx leadership and empowerment.
Yes,
take it away.
Thank you so much, Diane. Yes, my apologies to the group. My screen froze, technical issues. Can we move forward to the next slide, please? I just wanted to cover a couple slides, and this is exactly why we're here. You've heard from Gloria, you've heard from Luis giving the backdrop, and now you've heard from Frank and Ed about what we're doing as an institution. These are the data we're trying to disrupt, right? And so because we know the pathways to UC are inequitable, right? With Latino students, constituting still a critical mass of UC enrollment, but not where near the 55% of where we could be. We know that there are inequities in terms of the A through G completion rate based on the percent of high school graduates. And so this is primarily the data we're really trying to disrupt in terms of infusing our partnerships, reaching out beyond, other higher ed institutions, and really reaching to our high schools and our community organizations like Becky, and also like through the multitude of partnerships you've heard from with Ed. So this is exactly why we're focused on, ensuring that a pathway to UC is viable where generations can rise. Next slide, please. And I know that this sentiment has been incorporated throughout the talk, so I'm just going to touch on it. This is part of my own work, and it really speaks to why higher education needs to be Latinx serving and responsive. And what does that mean, right? It means that we already know Latino students are in our halls of higher education, but at UC San Diego, we're working to have a greater understanding of the inequities that exist throughout the P20 education continuum. How might we respond to the needs and mitigate those uneven resources and investments? And just to reiterate the point of the Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative being so critical, it's the point that I mentioned in the video, and that is when a Latino student goes to college, their whole familia goes with them. What does that mean? It means that they're able to get a glimpse of college through the eyes of their loved one, that higher education attainment fulfills the hopes and dreams of the generation before. Next slide, please. And this is my own personal anecdote of my pathway to UC and how a generation rises, right? And this will lead us into our discussion. And that is as a daughter, as a sister, as a scholar, as a Chicana activist and leader, and wife and mother, that I know that those experiences early on in UC really set my pathway on to higher education. And this is why it's so critical. We need for many of our community members to not only become the next generation of faculty, the scientists, the CEOs of community organizations, but we need for them to be invested in. And it took mentorship, it took individuals that cared to really set me on that pathway. And how a generation rises is really by investing in, our youth, by investing in our youth so that they go on to higher education, they contribute back to their communities, and they impact the next generation. But we also need those thought leaders. So for those of you that are alum that have your bachelor's from a UC, welcome back. We'd like to see you back as a PhD student. We'd like to see you back in our master's programs. And so what we're really trying to foster is also this concept of being a lifelong learner. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over, but we're really thrilled to really try to impact the next generation of Latino leaders, Latino scholars, and Latino innovators in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Contreras, and thank you for bringing it home. We're able to see a full picture from all of our panelists of the collective effort that's needed in the community, with the familia, la comunidad, higher education, and all our community partners and leaders of creating and maintaining wonderful opportunities for our Latinx community members and friends. We are pleased now, thank you to all the panelists, we're pleased now to move quickly to questions because we have been sharing so wonderfully and so fully, we are conscious of time. We have our very first question. And that question is going to be first posed to Dr. Contreras, who just came back in, and then to Ms. Corral. And that first question is, what does it mean for Latinx, Chicanx generations to rise? Dr. Contreras.
Yes, and I mean, I just alluded to it a bit, and that is in terms of, it really means for, our community to think about when our students go on to college, they're really they have a large sphere of influence, right? They're able to give back to their families. They're able to give back to their communities. My whole family laughs because my father sets up appointments for me when I go back to Norwalk, California, right? And when I think about my experience as a daughter of a Teamster, the daughter of really a working class family, I know my responsibility to give back. And so when I go back home, my parents set up meetings with local community students from the local community so that I'm talking to them about UC, so that I'm reading their statements of purpose, that I'm helping them to map out their higher education pathway. And any given Thanksgiving, this one will look different, but in any given Thanksgiving, I'm talking to 10 to 15 to 20 students from my local community, because we all know the value of that education and how it triggers the economy, on how it enables us mobility, and it enables us to be in spaces that we may not have been part of otherwise.
Amazing, thank you. And what great role modeling for them to see you in those roles and to receive your mentorship. Thank you. Ms. Corral.
Well, completely agree with what Dr. Contreras said. I guess my perspective is what it means is to be radical and to be courageous, to be a change agent, because we have to be thinking holistically about changing structures. It's a moment of reckoning, I think, for all of us individually, and I think collectively as societies and institutions, to really be brave enough to reimagine what social justice and educational equity really can be for Latinx and Chicano-X families, because it's inclusive of all families. And so I would say what it means for for Latinx generations to rise is that we think big, we think bold, we dare to dream, and that we hold each other accountable and our institutions accountable, political, government, our partners and each other to that ambition, which is what's driven so many of our families to leave everything that they've ever known, to go into this unknown and to create this incredible belief that, that things can change. And so I would say that we don't shirk from that responsibility individually or collectively, that it has to be structural, it has to be holistic, and it has to be predicated on this notion that social justice will only be achieved when every person has access to what we know is the root of equity, which is their opportunity and ability to achieve to their fullest potential.
Courage and boldness. Thank you, Ms. Corral, and the ability of all of us to work together to achieve the goals for the community. Wonderful. We have a second question, and this will go to Dr. Alvarez and Mr. Silva. How may educators and administrators in higher education best serve Latinx and Chicanx students to ensure they thrive in a university setting? Dr. Alvarez.
I'll say just a couple things real quick. The first thing that comes to mind is that we should be concerned with more than just representation, more than just numbers and demographics. That is to say, it's really important to have more Chicanx and Latinx students enrolled in the university, but we also have to be devoted to improving the climate and culture. We have to be devoted to altering and improving the educational mission of the university. All of these things sort of work in tandem, I think, to create a kind of broader sense of an institutional university transformation that is not just going to have more students here that are from Chicanx and Latinx backgrounds, but that will keep them here, that will improve and make more successful the time they spend here. And then, of course, as we've heard in so many different ways today, really enhance the impact that they have in the world at large once they leave the university and keep those connections moving. And just one final note, I'd say, as a faculty member, it's really important to recruit and retain more Chicanx and Latinx faculty that will work one-on-one and up close with the students. That's absolutely critical to this entire operation.
Thank you. Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Luis. I agree with everything you said. And there's just a couple of things I want to add for our administrators. I think it's really important for what I've learned in this whole process is my own need for cultural humility and my own need for centering students, their voices. And so what I've discovered is that I don't have all the answers. I came into this work knowing that I didn't, but I thought I knew more than I actually did know. And I learned a lot from the students. So this idea that we have to be partners with our students. Some of our most amazing programs and some of the most amazing things that we've done are a direct result of student input and student voices. So I feel like that's been my learning trajectory. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn from our students, but it only comes if we can approach the work with the idea that we want all students to thrive. And when we serve a student group that is particularly marginalized, everybody will thrive.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. We have one final question, and I think Ed is going to be a perfect person for extension to start this one off. How are Latinx students able to learn about branding themselves in order to succeed once they graduate and land a dream job? And if there's time, Dr. Contreras as well.
Well, as a person that really doesn't like the word branding, I will just say that everything, it's really quite unique that these students have their own unique capabilities and their own special gift to bring to this world. And I think many of the areas that I think about when we think about the University of California, San Diego is not just bringing in undergraduates, but how our role as an institution connects to our greater community. And it's that mindset that we're working with BK and South Bay and Pearl Valley that says that the University of California is something for everybody. It's a public good. And so not so much branding, but really about how do we actually look at each individual? Do they bring the unique capabilities, talents, and skills that help lift up not only the University of California, but overall our community? We have to do better and continue to strive that no matter where you're at, whether you're a pre-college student, an undergraduate, a family member, we've heard the stories, that having a connection to the University of California, San Diego should be something special, and we should have an affinity that's positive. And in conjunction with that, that's where we lift up our own student base and our affinity of being a great institution, not just because of research and because of the great discoveries, but the discoveries that we find in the individuals that are connected to us.
Thank you so much. A wonderful way to wrap up our great conversation. Many thanks to our esteemed panel and the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and all our great colleagues there. You should be seeing slides now about how to reach us and next steps. So here we go. I'm sure you want to be involved now. And so here are all your opportunities to be involved in the UC San Diego Latinx Chicanex Alumni Council. You may mentor a student. Please consider making a gift to the Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative. You will receive these slides after, so you should be able to see all the connections. Diversity.ucsd.edu will have all our initiatives, as well as for those who are asking about demographics, there are dashboards there. And we encourage you to look at our website that has resources for COVID-19 and EDI, our Center for Faculty Diversity and Inclusion, our community centers. There's an anti-racism guide also available. Next slide, please. And thank you to all. Consider registering for other alumni events and programs coming up next year. I think at this time, I am turning it over to alumni to say thank you and gracias.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists and great colleagues in the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Please visit alumni.ucsd.edu to learn more about our upcoming programs, including Triton Table Talks, Alumni Career Coaching, and our annual Triton Leaders Conference. This year's conference theme will focus on advancing equity. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we will be sharing the recording of the presentation and materials in the coming weeks.